Many people have the opinion that a budget is unnecessary and irrelevant. And when I hear those views, I see people who has no handle on their money and are in need of money intervention. Welcome back to Ira Living. Today we're going to be looking at the matter of budgeting and trying to answer the question, is budgeting really necessary? So to get us started, we're going to take a keynote at what a budget is really. So a budget primarily does three things. So the first thing that a budget does is it helps you to portion your money as to how you're going to be spending it in a form of a ratio. And then the second thing that a budget does is it helps you to track your spending as you're spending over a given period of time. The third thing that it does is it gives you the opportunity to audit your spending over a period of time. And doing these three things will then help you to make better money decisions because you can reflect and review your spending and then make improvements as and where necessary. Now, it would be good to understand that all of those three things that a budget does are things that companies and organizations, their finance departments are constantly doing. Now, the first business that we get to run is ourselves and the earning that we have. Therefore, we need to understand that just like companies and other organizations are managing their finances, we also need to do the same, because if we aren't able to manage our finance when we're given that little, then how can we expect to have the opportunity to scale it to bigger proportions? Therefore, we need to start off with ensuring that we're using a budget to the best of our ability to be able to direct our money for where it needs to go, to then be able to track our money and how we're spending it, and then give ourselves the opportunity to audit such spending, then review, reflect, and make the necessary improvements. Now, when we get to look at a budget, we want to have a think about how we partition the money that we have. Now, a personal budget tends to focus on four different groups of things, and we're going to talk about those four things. The first one it focuses on is needs. Now, your needs are things that, of course, as said, you cannot do without. So those are expenses that must be paid. And these can be split up into fixed expenses and variable expenses. Now, the fixed expenses on your needs would be things like your rent, or if you're on a fixed rate mortgage. Those are things that are fixed. They're not necessarily going to vary within the year. And you have other things such as your phone contracts or other contracts that you need to have in order to function, like your internet and things like those. You have a fixed amount that you're going to be paying over a period of time. Now, there are other expenses that need to be paid, and their needs. And those are things like your utilities. So when you think about it, it's things like your gas, your electricity, your water, and also, in addition to those, your grocery shopping. Now, the reason these are categorized as variable is because you're going to be paying based on your usage. And yes, there are people who have fixed amount of direct debit that they pay to their utilities each month. However, at the end of the year, those are normally calculated and reviewed. And so what savings or approach that you take to minimize those expenses will eventually show out when your account gets reviewed. And so they're variable because you can determine the quantity of it that you use, and in so doing determine the amount of money that you spend. Now, your grocery shopping is something that you can manage and monitor because it depends on what you're buying. That's going to determine how much you spend. Equally, your utilities is pretty much the same. It's based on your usage that you're going to pay. And so you can adjust those, and hence why they're called variable. Now, it's in these variable expenses where you can effect some change, because you can look at how you're using them so you can better manage the usage of them and minimize your cost. On the other hand, the fixed expenses like your mortgage or rent or your phone bill and your internet bill and other fixed expenses like those are things that you can review at given periods of your fixed rate term and try to get better rates where possible to, in the long run, minimize your expenses. If you're not monitoring these, then how are you then going to be able to make those necessary changes that are required? The second area where you need to direct some of your money is in the area of debt. So if you are someone who currently have debt, and you need to pay those down, then you're directing some of your money there. So this might be student loan debt that you have and you're still clearing. It might be credit card debt. It might be overdraft. It might be store cards and other forms of debt that you incur in that way. And it could be a hire purchase for your car and other things. Now, what you then have to be able to do is to try and see how you can best proportion enough money to these areas so that you're not just paying the basic minimum, but you're trying to pay off as much of these as possible. So that you can reduce the amount of money you're paying out in interest and have that money to work for you instead. Now, the third area where you want to direct some of your money is in the area of generosity. Now, when I say generosity, generosity includes tithing, if you're someone who does that, and other charitable form of giving. And then the third part of generosity is savings, where you're giving to yourself. And so you want to be able to direct your money in these areas because you want to be able to have an impact, not just in your own life and the future you want to build out, but in the life of other people around about you. The fourth area you want to direct some of your money to is the area of wants. So these are things that you want to do for yourself, but it's not things that you need to do. And so you make the provision to plan out different things that you're going to do for yourself. So this includes things like your holiday, your clothes shopping, going to different activities and events. Those are things you want to do, and they are things that are profitable to you and to your existence. However, they are not things that are absolutely necessary. There are many different percentage rules to help people to see how to best govern their money in terms of their budget and how to proportion it and direct it. However, the best solution to use initially is to have a look at how much money you're earning, have a look at how much you need to direct towards your needs, how much you need to direct towards your debt payment, and how much it is that you need to direct towards your savings for whatever savings target you have, and your tithe or other forms of giving. And then you need to take a look at how you can ensure that you afford yourself at least one of the things that you want per month. I would also suggest that you have a small amount of money that you can put away for your holiday so that you treat it as an annual savings and you start saving out for that each month so that it's treated like an annual expense. Now, once you've done your percentage work out, you will then be able to see a percentage that you can use for directing your money. Once you start to reduce your needs expenses and you start to reduce your debt expenses, then you can reduce the proportions in each of those areas and increase the proportions for your generosity and for your wants later on. Now, remember, the way in which you spend your money through your budget is going to boil down to your current circumstances, and hence why it's best to use a proportion rule that is going to work for you rather than put you in unnecessary and overwhelming stress. Now, your budget is a guide to help you, and it shifts and changes as you make adjustments to the different financial portions of your life. So all the best with working on your budget to get you to that place where you become the master of how you manage your money, because you then become equipped with the necessary skills you need to know how to direct your money, to know how to track your spending, and to know how to audit those spending. Then you can reflect, review, and improve as you go along. Remember, financial literacy is revolutionary. It has transformed my life, and I believe it can do the same to yours.